Welcome everybody to our impromptu Vivace meeting. Originally, we have to thank Vivace for getting this set. We're sorry for all the confusion running around, but when you do something in the last few minutes or the last week, then things change. But the intent of what we want to do today is first go through the things that have changed, that to us that have been dealing with it sometimes for almost a year, we don't realize are new to the rest of you. So the first thing we want to talk about is the little, why do some areas come up in red on the JR 3-3? Can you see? Oh, right there, with a little star by it. Does anybody know? And you can't say. And you can't say. Does anybody know why it's there?
I couldn't say.
This is the state of Minnesota.
I've never.
These are our local areas. They're all listed here.
So one thing we did on the JR 3-3 is we thought, how do we know if we run the state JR 3-3, if every area is finished and has certified their ratings so we know the report is complete, right? Because before that you didn't know.
Right.
So now they're all listed there. All the areas that are in Vivace for the state. And if they have a festival that is not yet certified, it will come up in red. Certified means all the ratings are in, it's closed, it's done. So if you see that, then there's a problem. And Jennifer, your question is?
So I have one area, I have three that are red, but the one I looked at and they created 2 festivals. And the one they just never used, there's no registrations, there's nothing,
So you have
but I
to,
can't delete it.
you have to ask me to.
Okay. And then the other 2, I have no idea because they look fine, so I'll have to do the.
And the other thing could be that they tried to go in and do something with manual entry, which they're not allowed to do. And as soon as they tried to do that and select their area, when you do manual entry, then it will think there's a festival there, which you have to let me know as well.
Okay.
And then I can delete.
Okay.
Okay,
But I add something to that.
yeah,
In this particular case, Metro 2 had their festival the first week of February. They thought they were all done. So this helped me to catch that they were not all done. Yes, they submitted some, told me that they were done. And they submitted their health report. I don't know how they did it, but somehow they got around the reports. But they were not certified. So it's really, really important to pay attention to these and find out why they're not certified.
And an empty festival is also registration as well, so if it's completely empty. To your point on the manual entry, if somebody goes and tries to do a manual entry and they type in the current year. And they select a festival area, it will create that empty festival. At that moment, even though they can't submit a manual entry.
Well, I know they created it because they thought they were gonna do it, and for whatever reason, they just did it all on their other one.
No, this is
So-
a manual entry festival, you're talking about where they actually created 2.
Yeah.
Duplicate
separate
festivals, they
festivals.
just never used the
Yeah.
second, so both of them are empty festivals and they both just need to be deleted in order for them to show up in black.
so that's what the red is there for. Okay, now you'll know it's, I mean, trying to draw attention to the fact, so you've got to call that festival area up and maybe, well, you can look and see if it's, as the Jennifer said, they just created 2 festivals and they never used one. But there could be something else that they didn't certify. or
If the
whatever.
other 2 are certified, I have to, I guess I have to get with you and figure out how.
Yeah. Carrie,
So this is kind of a common mistake to created a festival by accident, and could I not delete it myself? I would actually have to call you, you delete it.
yeah.
But
You
is
can't
it like,
do it.
if it's, is it possible to change that so the local festival chair can delete an accidental?
Like it was totally empty.
Not
Why
every
could we not?
festival is totally empty, even if it's empty. If there are records associated with it, so for example, if you created a festival and somebody went in to register, well, when they get in to register, I register that teacher as part of that festival. So even if you delete that registration, that teacher still has the teacher number for the rating sheet, they still have that teacher number record. And so you have other log records that are associated with it, so if it was completely empty, she doesn't have any problem deleting it, but if she has a problem deleting it, she still has to call and we have to delete those.
I sent him a ticket and he has to go in and, all the other,
It only takes a few seconds to do, but it is something what we want to avoid is somebody accidentally deleting something that's legit, so.
Okay. What about if you just change all the dates and just make it a future festival? Do that?
I think once it's been assigned to a particular festival year, I don't think it will let you move outside that festival year. You know what, actually, it's not going to let you, because it only lets you create festivals in this festival year anyway, so. You could move it to later in this festival year, but it would still show up here.
Okay.
Yeah, you could move it to later, but
And we're just being precautionary because if somebody hits the delete button when they shouldn't, you can't recover it. So you probably think we're being a little OCBC, and yes, we are, but there's a reason. So,
delete just forever.
yeah, it's just gone, so heavy.
So a regional chair, is it gonna show red from the states that way as well? When they go to
When
complain?
when you,
Nice.
My
When-
state report has rewritten.
But a regional,
Oh,
like
a
Western
regional.
region, Southeast region, Western region festival chair. When they wanna go and pull that JR3, are they able to pull it now for all of their states? And will they show up red?
there is not
Again.
yet a regional report,
Got it.
and
Yes,
coming in a
when I-
minute,
when
what
I go
will
in, I
eventually
see
happen with
red
that.
on the side.
Okay.
You can see when it goes.
The next thing that is kind of me that maybe you don't know about is, can you go to just the festival area reports? And bring up the JR 4-2. A lot of us don't need the JR 4-2, which frankly is why we didn't get it created for a while. Does anybody know what the JR 4-2 is? I don't think anybody in here needs the J. Oh, Margarita, you may. The 4-2 is if your state or area allows people to opt out of the Federation Cup. Then when you're sending money to the state, you can't just take the amount, all of us here, basically, everybody's in Federation Cup, so you put in the amount, everybody pays the same. But there are some states where they're allowing opting out of the Federation Cup. Then they have to have a separate report that lists everybody who was in to Federation Cup so that they know how much money they have to send for Federation Cup. So if that doesn't apply to you, you don't care. If it does apply to you, I don't know, does that apply to Louisiana?
I don't think so. I think we all do
Yeah,
federation.
so nobody here really cares about that report, but now it exists, so there you go. Okay, okay, so the proxy partner issue, which was, explained and worded in the new bulletin. Does everybody, first of all, do you know what proxy partner is? For duets. So if you have 3 kids who all are about the same level and they want to do duets and you don't want them to do trios, you can take one of those partners and have them play with 2 people. When they play with the second person, it will not count as far as them paying money or counting as an entry, or they have to pay fees, or they are earning points. But Vivace will now check to make sure that those partnerships are correct so that the one solo person, single person, shouldn't say solo, the single person is in a duet that qualifies to be a valid duet. And then they can be registered now with Vivace. There is a box that you check, you know where the boxes are for combining and alternating. Well, in duet it would only be alternating. And now there's a proxy partner box which shows up for the second person, not for the first person. When you would be registering that duet, you would put the person who is not yet registered into that first slot, and then you would be able to go and find the second person who's already registered with somebody else. Click that they're a proxy partner, and then Robert's crafted it so that all of those other things doesn't count on their student history, doesn't show up on the JR 3-3, don't owe the money, doesn't count as a participant, all of that shows up. And I think,
I'm trying to get to it like that.
Sandra.
yes,
So that's
select.
That's only if the duet partner, they have to play one duet that counts before they can be a proxy, or can they be a proxy?
Why would you not want to get points?
Oh, I know, but I mean, if,
So I cannot think of a situation. One
Right.
time, one person tried to register that way before we had this thing, but if they're gonna play the first time, they should want points,
exactly,
right?
Yeah.
So it's only gonna happen the second time when you've got odd man out and you're gonna give that person, they're probably gonna play the same pieces. They're probably gonna play primo, segundo, everything.
true.
They're just gonna play twice. They're gonna have to practice with both players. That's the likelihood of it. Yes,
Suppose a person is a proxy in two duets and is playing a third duet.
you're not allowed to proxy twice. That's in the rules.
I'm sorry. Suppose a person is playing, for points and is also a proxy.
Yes,
And then the person, the first duet event is canceled because, for example, the lead partner
oh,
broke his arm. The
Oh.
person signed up as proxy. Can those points be retrieved?
so if you can, if you catch it before you close the registration, you could actually, Robert, if I'm right, you could actually go in before you certify and change the box for where the proxy partner was. And then you would, put in the other one, where they didn't play, you would put no rating.
No.
And then the second one where he was a proxy partner, you would go in and unclick the proxy partner. And then it would count.
Right.
Hang on, there's one little catch there. You're mostly right. But the first performance that they did not perform in has to be deleted because it doesn't have a rating. So when you try to save it with the proxy check, it will
Oh.
say you're already registered, can't do it. So you don't have a rating associated with the first
Gotcha.
performance. It's gotta go away. That's the only, other than that, you were spot on.
Okay, yes, because I forgot that the proxy partner looks to make sure. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay,
Who has administration privileges to do that? Teacher do it? Or-
no,
Well, the teacher can do it up to the approval process.
Yes.
Once it's been approved, then the admin can do it, and once it's been rated. It's gotta go up to, I don't know if state admins can or national,
No.
national admins, the only ones that can pay grading after it's been rated. So it
Yeah, after-
depends on where it's at in the cycle.
And that's on Roman numeral 15, if they want to refer to it. I mean,
in the bulletin.
Roman numeral 15.
Okay. All right, what's the next one? Let's see. Is there any other questions?
I did have a related question.
Yeah,
All right, so
what's your name, by the way?
my name is Mark Cameron.
Oh,
We had a Zoom meeting.
yes, we did. And you're the one who presented the American Patriotic Folk Song was too long.
Did what?
That American Patriotic Folk Song was too long on the certificate.
That's right.
And we fixed that.
Great.
Okay,
So my second question. The proxy partner
yes,
finds out that the duet that actually got points didn't get a superior, got satisfactory.
you have to decide originally which is the one you're gonna go with. You can't change your mind and say, well, this person didn't practice hard enough.
So it does matter which one is the one that counts for real and which one's the proxy.
Yep. So you have to make sure, yeah, you can't hedge your bets and take the best off. Oh, yeah,
While we're on the screen, can I add, it doesn't have to be the proxy, but where the composition name and the choice composition,
yeah.
when you're doing a choice composer. Do we not have a other choice? Because we have a lot of Asian teachers who are now pulling Japanese composers, just like
I
that.
just send the name to me and I put it in. No other.
Alright.
And she does it very
But
well.
it's-
And I do it very quickly, but
Okay.
it helps if you send me a screenshot or a link to that composer's information.
Birth date and.
Don't you say, I usually do it in less than 24 hours.
Absolutely. A lot of times it's within 2 hours.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Hi, it's Lisa. It's Sandra added probably, I have 4 or 5 Canadian composers for me within 30 minutes last year. Last year. It was so quick. It was actually rather than Vivace.
And when you have new events like popular piano.
Right.
If it opens up to have a choice piece, there'll be a flood of new composers.
So a lot of those composers in there already for voice.
I hope.
Yeah, because I've had to put in lots of, I've learned so much history, about so many things. It's been very educational. Tiffany,
Do we foresee a day where we'll be able to just enter that information and then you can improve it? So that it would just be like add a composer, we put the information in, the date.
you know what? I don't think so because sometimes I'll notice that they asked to put it in and it's already there. So, and like everybody's saying, I do it so quickly that I don't think. To open it up to everybody makes me really nervous when I see nervous something.
Honestly, I
Not you guys, but
I
other
could
people.
leave it's done. It's just that.
It actually, for my region, I screen them. And I would say 50% are in there.
Yeah, I do.
That the
They
teachers
just don't know how to find it.
Plus,
Yeah.
you have to know how to sell it.
Yeah.
Lots.
Yeah, any diacritic.
And if you're looking for church, T, U, umlaut, RK, type in Daniel. And it'll come up.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah.
Or just
Yeah, regular RGM works great.
That's right.
Bartok, by the way, it said Bartok. It's not Bartok, it's Bartok.
Do you want to tell them the or and input?
What?
You want to give them the or and input? Just make sure everybody knows about it with the search criteria,
The what?
the or and the and with comma.
You need to explain that.
Oh, I'm sorry. So when you guys know this rule, you guys use it. If you're typing a search and you type first name space last name, so type in Daniel Smith, it will search for every name that has Daniel or Smith in it, and you will get a ton of results. If you type in Daniel, comma, Smith, it will search for only those records that have both of those words in them. So the comma turns it into a much more narrow search because it's searching for something that has both of those. So if you see me search, you guys have seen me search. If I search for Sandra, I don't type out her full name. I type in SANBRUI and I hit search and I find her every single time. So I don't even type in the full name. I just type in as many letters as I think is going to be necessary to find it, comma, and then as many letters of their last name as I think is going to be necessary. And some names are really, like if you have LI as the last name, that's going to be really difficult because if you type that in, no matter if you put a comma or a space, it's going to come up with every scenario of LI in the name. Anywhere LI appears in the name, it's going to find any of them. So the trick is maybe not search by that, but only search by the first name and sort it by it's automatically sorted by the last name. So in that example, so there's different ways you can search to get to where you want. It's just a matter of training folks to, use a space when they want a bigger search, use a comma when they want really, really narrow on these two words.
Can I go back to, I hate to sound morbid or anything, but what if somebody happens to you? Or somebody replaces your job and they're not as great as you are?
There's nobody as great as her.
There are other people who know this stuff.
Okay.
They really are. Like Grace and Robert. Right. Okay, so, but thank you. No death wish here, I don't know.
But there is a plan if need be, if something happens to Sandra, there is a plan, so. I'm like the last line of defense, you can always.
So you wonder why you have to have 2 admins for your local club.
That's
exactly
There you go.
So y'all are the two national.
There's 5 that are at the top.
Yeah.
So you just,
No, sure, still.
Same still there.
you're not. And
So, so anyway, it's just that, yes, it's true, most of the time they have to ask me, so, but not always. So the next thing is to make sure you understand about archiving.
just
Teachers and admins need to know, don't do any archiving until June 30th, because it can affect the records. So I think we put in the prevention of you being able to archive somebody with an active record, right?
You're talking about archiving teachers. Correct.
And students.
And
We
student
don't let it-
relationships, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
teachers from festivals, more importantly, students from teacher relationships.
Yeah. we put in a safeguard because they were moving and then it does affect all the JR3 to get reflects those records. So that's why June 30th, July 1st, everybody can start cleaning up their records. The kids have graduated and that kind of stuff, but you don't want to archive before June 30th. There is a one way, because once in a while a student will form in those festival areas that have something in the fall and then they have something in the spring, right? Then you gotta call a national admin and say, I gotta transfer this person. So, Melissa,
So we did this year.
yes, yes.
So my teacher that is from one of our areas that passed away. I think she has a couple of students that never moved to another teacher. Do I just archive her as a teacher and the students get archived?
Another good question. First, you have to archive all students.
Okay,
Then you go archive the teacher. Because archiving the teacher, they'll still be linked to that teacher and therefore they won't be able to be transferred easily.
okay,
So if somebody has passed away or is totally retired, you first archive all of the students.
And if there are relationships, they get a one. If there are student relationships, they will get a one.
Yeah, if somebody else tries to pick.
No. If they try to archive a teacher that has student relationships.
Oh, we put a
we'll get-
warning into that.
There, you have.
Okay, good. Sometimes I can't remember all the stuff we ran into and we said to Robert, we need a warning and, okay.
Yep.
All right. So we have this plan Robert's been working on. Robert has this plan. Because if your area is like my area, there are a lot of teachers. First of all, you send an email to them from Vivace and it's blocked by the browser and they don't get it. They don't get the invoice, or they don't get the schedule, or they lose it, or they delete it, that kind of stuff. And so we're doing a kind of a whole revamping of how everything's calculated. And it's going to change a lot of things, like our ability to now do larger reports, like the region report will be able to be done. And the other thing that we're going to do is change it so that the teacher can go in and instead of just having the option to run their student history report, they will be able to go in and access the invoice once it's ready. They'll be able to go in and access the student schedule once it's ready. They'll be able to go in and see the list of who's earned a gold cup. That page that comes up, they'll be able to access that so that they don't constantly, well, let's just say how do I do it, but then you tell them how to do it, right? Well,
Is there a chance we're gonna get a change in how the fees are done? Because we're totally different fees system, not the one where the first one is this much and the second one. We have separate fees for each activity.
we've tossed that around a lot and we've kind of decided no.
So I still have to go into everybody's by hand and then
Well,
I'm gonna want
or you can kind of do it. I want to say you're the exception rather than the rule. And so you may want to consider revamping. And so if you don't want to, if you want to do it your way, then yeah, you gotta do it manually. Because once we started trying to see if we could accommodate the different ways that people do their fees, we realized that it would be so horrific to give all the options that we gotta just stay where we are. Because it would be so, and a lot of people have just kind of moved over to the normal way.
Can I get a list? Is there a way to get a list of like the total solos? And I'm just missing it, total solos, concertos and such before festival.
You can go into the registration.
But-
And download it and see it.
And
Do you know how to show her that?
For a festival?
Yeah, show her how, it's still there after you've certified it, right? You can still see that.
Which
Yes,
one we
yes.
yes.
I'm
not
talking
sure.
about going into a festival and seeing,
Oh, I see what you're gonna go to the performance list.
yeah,
I got you.
See,
Yeah.
that doesn't, that gives me total performances, but it doesn't give me a breakdown that I have.
sure it does.
But if you drop that
Right
list.
there.
Oh,
Right there.
So I didn't know that. Thank
Yeah.
you.
That's okay,
In
that's why.
parentheses, it'll give you the
That's why
counts
it's here.
right away, so you don't actually have to select
It's
each one.
Is it take all this man, people could send money to the state treasurer and.
Oh, yeah, you can go reference that. If you didn't know that was possible, then
No, I
you,
didn't.
So that's why you're here. Don't feel embarrassed. Just keep asking questions. So. Okay,
It's
Um,
bad I didn't intend.
But I use it a lot.
I was gonna say, it's a use I didn't intend.
Oh,
for.
well, we-
Glad I put it in. So-
That's a lot. Okay, now some of the other reports that have been requested and that are now available, we have, where we sort the consecutive superiors by teacher now. Okay,
Ooh, nice, thank you.
okay, you're welcome. And we have, we're going to have a schedule that lists the registration simply by the time that they're coming into the building, because a lot of people wanted that. Right now it's by room and then by time instead of just time. And it'll be time and then alphabetical. So some areas where they have the student come in and sign, now there's gonna be that report available as well.
It's not up though, right? Because we have to wait for the new format. to
Yeah.
finish.
I can tell you, the answer to your first question is yes, but waiting on the new reports, I don't think we're gonna wait on the new reports for that particular. The ones that the new reports are really addressing are the ones that calculate student history. So if you're counting points, consecutive superiors, anything like that, those are the reports that will be affected by what we're calling the new reports. The new calculations, the scheduling reports, the rating sheets, all of those that don't need to calculate anything, we can add those, because those are easy to import into the new report system.
Okay,
And there-
what I'm just saying is they're not up to see like,
That is not up right now.
Yeah.
This one is not.
And then there was a request to have a list, we kept the list of the theory. We have a list of the theory students, and now we've added a list of the sight reading students because somebody requested that as well. So I guess the other point is, if you have something that you want, you just have to communicate, not that it's for sure gonna happen, but we try whenever it's possible. Diane. Jennifer.
It's like, there's somebody behind you.
Yeah.
So now that we voted on allowing people to order cups ahead of time,
This still has to go through the board.
if it goes
executive
through,
committee.
can we have a report that has potential cups earned?
It's possible.
Even I will laugh, we had it in the plans,
I know.
and I loved it, I would order my cups off of there.
Right, let me clarify what we're talking about here. So you would have a prospective cup report that would be predicated on where the student was at the end of last year, what they've registered for this year, and hypothetically, if they earned a superior,
Yes.
they would earn a cup
Yes.
this year.
or.
It'll be fun. It'll be fun.
It's
But
doable.
there's other layers, because it could be that they only need 1 point, so it's not superiors.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Hang on, give me a second. I gotta think of all those permutations. Give me a second.
Yeah.
I mean, is it possible? The answer is yes. I don't want to tie up the meeting with me staring at the ceiling.
But
It is possible.
I'll say, I printed that top report ahead of time. Because, before we were able to print superior certificates. And we would just go through and highlight all the potential superior certificates and their number. Just
Based on what they registered, but you had to do that manually.
Yeah, and we did it manually.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of a way to do it on a performance that doesn't exist as a rated performance. So,
Yeah.
and also to figure out how many points do they need to get to the next cup?
Yeah.
Could they achieve that at a superior or less rating? So.
But now
So let's make sure we all understand, just because junior division passed that motion, it now goes to the board on Saturday morning, correct? And all of those motions have to be passed there, so it has not passed. Okay,
Yeah.
So we talked about the additional reports that would be available to teachers. So as admins,
Yes.
you would have similar questions, like rating sheets. They don't appear to teachers until you say yes.
Yes,
So for those giving,
custodial teacher.
Right, well, I'm thinking you probably want it to be a little more granular than just reports.
Right.
Because you may not, because invoice may not be ready. The schedule may not be ready. So is the invoice ready? Is the schedule ready? Yes, yes. And once those are ready, then that option will appear for that festival, for that teacher, for your teachers. So, but until then, you're gonna have additional options, so they just won't be able to go print it. And the schedule's a third best.
Oh, okay. Oh, because they would get it while it's in.
Right, like as soon as it gets registered, technically the invoice is there, they could go print it, but if they register 7 more people after that, then their invoice is wrong.
Okay.
So you need to be able to say registration is closed. Yes. Go
Okay,
ahead.
and then, does anybody know what standard reporting and recital reporting is? Is that something else new?
Oh, reporting.
For schedule?
Well, isn't the recital format, is that the same word as recital reporting? So the recital format is I have 6 or 7 people coming at 9 o'clock and playing until 9:45.
Correct.
And so it's not gonna say Johnny plays at 9:05, Susie plays at 9:10. It's just gonna have all of them lumped in that one time slot, right?
Correct. And I was always getting in trouble. Can you go to the festival now? I was always getting in trouble because I would send it out to them and I would forget that I had to go and check
I can't get into the schedule because.
just a festival setting, just creating a festival. No, well, that might be there,
But I don't have one that,
but just go to one of them that's there, it should be there, I think. Settings.
That's yeah, that's where we were.
Oh, so we were where we were, yeah,
So
so
we
you
can-
click this and then you don't have to always remember every time, okay, my schedule's done, I can send it out.
Mhm.
And then you'd have to go up and select recital format. Now you don't have to, because you've selected it in your festival and it's so you don't have to remember every time you're sending something out.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm getting you there. So if you go to teachers, actually is where you need to. So this is what you were saying, that you would forget to select the recital reporting for your festival. And so you'd send out all your schedules and they'd be standard.
Standard, yes, and then I'd have to say, whoops. Because
So can, the word reporting to me makes me think JR33, JR34 report.
So change it to
Can we
format.
be formatting?
I have no problem. That's
Yeah.
just a- that's
Is
just
that a
label.
word that
Yeah.
makes more sense to anybody else? Is
It
that
makes-
me?
Yeah.
That, because the reporting.
Send me an email. So I can send Robert.
Maybe that's where I was having.
Back to what? The setup?
Other setup.
See, it used to be that the buttons were active on that screen.
Now, under events, my question was, under Vivace setup, could you list the events in ABC order? Or could you click a little arrow that would sort them in ABC order?
We're talking about the duration on one side,
Yes.
there's nothing here because it's already been certified.
I know.
Push.
but it still would have this list. This just didn't have enough of
If
it.
it just had that little arrow you could click, or the heading, and then it would sort by either event or moment or.
Let's go, can you pick a different festival?
Well,
One that does, yeah, it doesn't matter if it's,
yeah,
doesn't matter if it's certified, just pick a bigger festival that would be scheduled.
all mine are certified.
That's okay, it doesn't matter.
So I'm
You still should be able to access schedule, I believe.
3, 4.
No, yeah. Once they're
No.
certified, you can't.
The registrations are gone.
You can't,
Because it's
you can't
certified.
register, you can't.
It's I can't get into the schedule. Performances.
Well, I was just wondering if that was possible, if you could.
I wanted to see one because I'm trying to think of why we would not allow for sorting that.
Yeah.
In that respect, I can't think of a reason why we couldn't, so I would say send a message, and if it can't be done, I'll give you an explanation as to why.
You want me to?
Yes,
You
I
can
do.
just- okay, send it.
But I think the reason is because I think most everything we do in the system is in bulletin order, so it's in the order that's in the
That's what,
bulletin.
and we sort of have to do it manually scheduling before we do the Vivace scheduling, just to kind of, we got,
Sure.
I can't explain why. Can you give your email just in case?
Sandra Preysz at msn.com, but you have a null and variant spelling.
Okay, it's on the website, I suppose, okay.
It's Preysz at MSN. Nolan?
Okay, I see.
We got scheduled.
You know, these ghost spots, you know, like, I wouldn't have to do it on paper if I could put in a bunch of times. And then say I'm gonna eliminate the 9 o'clock, so I'm gonna have kids to really make worthwhile to start until 10, but then I go. But then I can't get rid of that 9 o'clock time, it's always kind of weird in the background. And then if I try to move people around, it says, oh, this person's already, you know, you can't do that.
Well, Robert, we're gonna give Robert a little time at the end, because we've sent him out a lot of these requests about scheduling, and he's been brainstorming.
So you
So,
know what I'm talking.
yeah, I do, yeah.
I have a question about the site playing event, so if I am going to try to explain it, but I might be confused my own self. So when I have teachers register, and I'm very thankful you're having the list. For some reason, I believe it's after, it's very hard to find love learning. And so I click on the site, you know, where you have the little number site playing, and then it has that number, I click on that, and it displays them, but then something happened, and their levels disappeared. And I don't know if it was after, like, the festival, right after they were scheduled. And I had I was like, oh no, what happened? Like, the levels were there, and then they were gone. And I don't know if anybody knows what I'm talking about.
Is it possible she's talking about on the pre-schedule screen when you
Yes,
go from left to right?
No, are you talking about pre-schedule?
So basically.
Or are you talking about registration?
So when I think it is to do with pre-schedule and then after scheduling, because I would schedule everybody, but then after everything was scheduled, their levels just, the levels.
Or sorry, okay.
Yeah,
Send me a note, because we had him extend a lot of stuff over, and that probably just didn't get extended over, because we had you put the required piece over,
Correct.
remember? And so I think it's just
Yeah,
probably
that's-
related
no,
to
I-
the same thing.
That would be odd if the level's not made, but if it's not, I
Yeah.
think that's where, that's the only place I can think of where it would make sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if that's where it is, yeah, we can make sure that it stays.
Send
Okay, thank
send
you.
me, again, send me an email.
And I think that's where it is, but I just know something happened, and I think that
It could be because before, one of the improvements we think is that pre-scheduled, you could see what they were playing. Put them over and schedule them,
Yeah, and then you can't.
and then you can't, and then we made it so they could hold on football.
That's a great memory. I think I needed to show.
Hold on.
Well, but you don't want to have a room of everybody playing stallion, you know, you want to have a variety.
Yeah, they explained that to me. The judge goes cross-eyed.
Exactly.
Sandra,
Yeah,
so I have a question, a little bit different, what we're doing right this minute.
hold on a second. 280802. 280802. Okay, let me go.
Okay.
Yes,
So I've had a situation where a teacher was ill and had a problem with her health, and she did not pay for her membership, so she wasn't participate, so she was not activated.
can you go to membership list?
And then her kids started going with other teachers, and then the teacher asked me, what did this kid do last year?
Right.
So I can find out.
Okay, what you would have to do in that instance, if if that student is transferring to another teacher, you have to go to that teacher and you have to archive them with the red button. But before you do that, huh?
I think
She was deactivated.
she was deactivated because she hadn't paid yet.
All you'd have to do is bring her back into your festival area and then deactivate and then
But
archive.
did you
the student.
deactivate her by archiving, or did you
I
deactivate by
deactivated
doing this button? Okay,
I
then you click,
deactivated them.
then you click this, include archive, and all of those will come up, and you just have to unclick the button. You don't have to find them again. So
Look,
this So this button would be red and you would change it to green and then she'd come back up. That's what the red and the green is for.
Sandra,
Yeah,
I deactivated every teacher on July 1st. And then when they paid their junior dues, I activated them.
That's where the
So
problem.
I think she just needs to let me know. Because I'm the one that deactivated.
oh,
Or if it's in, so it's not in your area,
It is, I deactivated every teacher
Okay,
in
so-
Texas.
but I mean, but,
She's area, she's state.
sorry,
Every teacher
Yeah,
in Texas.
so
I
that's
deactivated.
same state, there's.
I don't, what will happen with the online? They can't do that.
They're still there, they just can't register.
They don't have any registrations for that year, we're in the brand new festival year on.
But then they won't be able to access the online.
They can access it, they just can't register for anything.
No, I'm talking about online.
What do you mean by online?
I'm talking about the bulletin, sorry.
The online bulletin? No, the online bulletin has a different permission level, so just because they don't exist right this very moment, doesn't necessarily mean they don't have access to the
Okay.
online bulletin, because that rule, as far as they have to pay their dues to get access to the online bulletin, has not been.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, thinking forward to the bulletin, that your procedure wouldn't last things out.
No, the rule is if they pay for the bulletin for 4 years currently, they get the bulletin online for 4 years when they post that.
Okay,
I think she just needs to talk to me.
okay. But if you didn't know what the green and the red is for, that doesn't really archive them, that just gives them so they don't have access until they paid their dues or resolve whatever issue it is. And you can get to it by clicking the include archived to change it back. If needed, I see you raise your hand.
He had no information.
But it's just.
Not mine. She's the state level. She activated all teachers. I was such a big country. Amy Smith, hey, she was.
Okay.
It's not.
John Smith, hey. Yeah.
Should we, does anybody have any other questions about,
For all that.
does anybody have any other questions that they want?
Any plans to put the critique sheets to where they're fillable online so that we don't have to print them?
Like editable PDF. Please.
Not a,
We would love you.
Already. All I think is, in a nutshell,
we'd give you a cherry if you could do
that
part.
if you're gonna have it filled in, isn't that the problem?
we'll finish that thought, if you're gonna have.
If you're gonna have it filled in, then you have to make every single one of those individually a fillable PDF.
Yeah, well, I have to define the individual fields on the PDF, because I cannot use a fillable PDF as a template. Because when it comes in, it doesn't recognize the fields, it just brings in the PDF without the fields. The library would be, so it's. I'm not saying it's impossible, I'm saying there are very, very, very few, API libraries are what we use, those are our programming tools, to create PDFs or to create an Excel spreadsheet. There are libraries that we have to actually pay for to buy, and the libraries that are out there, very, very, very few of them do fillable forms where you can actually program a form to be filled. They want you to use Adobe. Adobe makes it very difficult and they're wonky, so I've been very reluctant to try, because what I don't want is to create something that works. You know what I mean? And we tried to do fillable forms for customers, and then on simple forms where it's just 1 or 2 fields, sometimes we find that it doesn't even get the placement right from the form or page to page. It's up to the libraries to get, and it comes down to Adobe being a little bit more forthcoming in their programming tools. And they just they want you to buy their software and use their software to create PDFs. So they do make it difficult to do all of the more advanced things. But there are tools that may be pricey, but might be worth it. So, but I will say that they are pricey to purchase the libraries.
I have to get all the information from the teachers and put it in an Excel sheet. In order to be able to sort it and have everything separated, where if I pull it down from Vivace, all of the titles and composers are crammed into one cell. And so that turns into a way, I guess, copy this one, and it gets it over there, copy that, so it's over there. And that's.
But that still doesn't solve the problem because you have those three additional items at the bottom of your rating sheets that would be the
Well,
fillable form that we.
Yeah, I
that
would
we
like to
aren't
be able to do that
included.
too, yeah.
So, even that wouldn't solve yours, you would get all of these PDFs without, you'd have to add those three fields to every single one.
Yeah.
So,
Robert,
Marty, you have a question?
how does Vivace generate the code? The student code on a fillable PDF?
well, the student code prints on the non-fillable PDF, the student code.
But for a fillable one, that's what I'm asking, how would you work those
I wouldn't-
technology?
I wouldn't necessarily want the student's ID number, I would want the performance's ID number.
Yeah, that's what she's talking
Yeah,
about.
okay.
So how could you merge those two technologies?
But in that scenario, we probably wouldn't be creating a fillable form. Are you talking, when you're asking, are you talking about something the judge could fill out in real time? at the
Right,
festival?
but I'm saying she wants that fillable form.
Okay, we're
But-
talking about two different things then.
Right, right.
So we're talking about two different things. The fillable form that goes printed and, or can be filled out. The question is, what do you do with the fillable form? Because the ID number, how do you associate this document and be able to, because then you have to reverse the process. How do you get the information from said PDF that was filled out and import it in? So you have to go in and read each one, which would have an ID number. That I don't see being that big of a problem. But you then have to reverse the process and read all of that data into the system from that fillable PDF. So, but to do what you're describing, which is to do it in real time, that completely eliminates the need for a PDF. So if you think about, you can't because we have all rated festivals, but if you can think about the first pass, second pass of your rating process, right now we ask for the rating, and I think there's a notes field for it. Isn't there? Yeah, there's a notes field. Sorry, I've been a while since I've seen that screen. I apologize. But it would be a matter of expanding that type of window. And instead of having rating one pass and rating two pass, you would have a judge actually be rating that performance in real time and filling all that out. Now, the problem is if you have two judges sheets and you have two ratings, you have two or three judges. I know some of them only have one. How would you average those would be the first question, the judges.
Well, I'm assuming that even though it's a fillable PDF, you eventually print it so the student has it.
But if it's printed and you filled out everything on the screen, putting it on the form is no different than me putting their name on the form or the piece, the required piece on it. It becomes just a matter of fitting it up in the proper position on the form.
Because I don't think we're ever gonna eliminate the student getting a paper copy of the rating.
So
We're
you,
not looking to put the judge's information into the laptop. We're
Correct,
only looking to make it so they can help on the form and then.
correct. We don't need to report everything.
Would you keep all these checkboxes? That's.
That's another issue. We can't change that rating.
And it's possible I may need to see you at another time, but I have a situation where I'm state president and our state festivals chair just retired. She's done it for like 20-something years. And I do not have another state festivals chair as of yet. But so you've got all this new information plus the information from before. And is it gonna be online? Like if I get a state festivals chair, how do they learn what to do?
Well, there's lots of help on the sports and.
Yeah, we have guides.
for tutorials,
There's tons of stuff there. You know where to find me.
and it was done by. It was done by the NFMC team, so it's not in my vernacular. It will. It's very easy for everybody to follow, so.
Is there anybody else who has a question? Because I want to give Robert just a quick minute about scheduling.
Just want to talk about the report for the other.
Oh, yeah. So there was one thing that came up last night and I realized some people didn't know it. But you go to reports and you go to consecutive superiors. For the festival. For the festival. Okay. Does anybody know what consecutive superior other means? Yeah.
5, 7, 8, yeah. 1.
Yeah, okay, there's some who didn't realize that,
Yeah.
but it has to have a different format because the first year it's printed on there, right? Third year, the third year is printed
It's
on
already.
it. The sixth year it's printed on there. The 2, 4, 5, 7, 8, 10, 11, all have that number. Now you show them the export that you got.
Okay,
Can you find it?
I can. It's next one.
Wasn't somebody having trouble with the,
Lining it up.
yeah,
So see, here's the one she downloaded, so it has a fifth year, it has the information. Do you know where the Woodbury, Minnesota, how that gets filled in? It's on your festival settings and it says held in. Yeah, that's why that's put in there because it has to be individual for your area. So where it says held in, then you type that in and then it automatically feed into all your certificates.
I'll do that.
See, that's why you come.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Robert, your turn.
What am I covering today?
Just anything, just your ideas that you're listening to scheduling and we're
Yes.
working on that kind of stuff.
Okay,
You've heard a lot of us.
yes, I'm gonna steal my water.
Oh, I'll take mine back.
Great.
Then we won't share germs.
So we've been hearing and listening a lot, and I've listened to a lot of different scheduling approaches. And I know one of the biggest issues that we've been trying to formulate a solution for is when the schedule is complete and you need to move a student. And you have a problem where you move that one student and it moves everybody around them because the scheduling algorithm is designed to fill in all the gaps. So if you leave a gap, it will fill it in for you. And not in a way that you necessarily want. So what we had talked about, and Sandra has used the term that we want to be able to lock in the schedule. She kept repeating it. One of the biggest problems that we had was, once you lock in the schedule, if you've noticed, if you think about the whole process of scheduling, there's no mechanism within that scheduling to change just an individual performance. There's not that you can pre-schedule it, but then it goes into the algorithm, and if you've messed up its time, if you've got the duration spacing wrong or whatever, it's going to move it from that point. So what we needed to do was devise a method, and I've demonstrated an example of a process that I thought it's not the best, but I think our first step in the process is going to be getting it to where you can lock in your schedule once it's compiled. Now, tell me if this is going to be a problem, because once you've locked in the schedule, your pre-schedules become irrelevant, your allocations become irrelevant, so those tabs would disappear. Your compile button would become irrelevant. You would never recompile it because you are going to, from that point on, move one performance at a time out of a time window, back to on schedule, and move it into another time window. Anybody see a problem with that approach?
Is this only working when I've used the allocation button?
Okay, so the allocation button is used whether you use it or not.
Okay.
Okay, so the idea, let me give you a brief history and I will make this as quick as possible. Sandra knows I can go on. So the idea was that you would pre-schedule the handful of students that had special requests. They need to be early in the morning in this room because they have to have this, this particular judge needs to have a piano in the room and they need to be out the door quick. Pre-schedule those handful of students. That was the original idea. I'm telling you what the original idea was.
Learned that's not.
Such information was not forthcoming in the development process yet. So then, once you've done that, then you can, when you do that, the act of pre-scheduling tells me if you put a P1, so a piano solo P1 into a time window, you have told me that you are scheduling P1s in that time window. So it creates the allocation for you automatically. That's why you sometimes, sometimes you use pre-schedule and sometimes you use the allocation. That's why you have different colored allocations, because the ones that you cannot remove have a pre-schedule associated with it. So that will pull in other P1s into that room because you want to kind of keep with the same level. So that's how those so when I say allocation gets used, even if you don't use it, if Grace pre-schedules everything, which she literally pre-schedules everything, then her allocation window is completely filled out. She never even has to touch the allocation window ever. Because her allocations are already filled out. So the allocations were designed to say, I want to put some P1s in here, some P2s in here, and some P3s in this time window.
So
And it
when you
would fill
lock
in.
it, when you lock it, because I do much like that.
Correct.
70-80% of it is pre-schedules.
The-
And then a handful are the ones that I fill in. And so then if I haven't allocated and I lock it, it can affect that.
No, if you have compiled the schedule and you have a completed schedule in front of you and you lock it, the allocations and the pre-schedules at that point literally become irrelevant. And what I mean by that is, if you have allocated P1 in this room and you take every P1 out of the room and move them somewhere else and put in P2s, I don't care. It's a manual process at that point. Yeah,
okay.
the system literally does not care what your allocations were. They were used to build the schedule up to that point,
And now everything
and
is
you've
that.
locked it in. And after that, basically you've written the recipe and we built the dish. But after the dish is done, we really don't know. The recipe is irrelevant at that point, so we don't need that anymore.
She has a 100% in this.
Yes,
So we do a lot of student swaps. And so, with this, because I would be doing 2 students at a time. That makes
like you'd be moving
yeah,
around.
like one
Yes.
from day 1 to day 2,
Yes.
because, so that wouldn't affect that. I could do 2, I could allocate.
The way it's currently structured, the way my example, and I'm not saying this is gonna be the exact way it's gonna work. Is the way it would work is you would remove the first student from the time window. It would go over into your unscheduled list, similar to your pre-scheduled list on the left side. So you would remove that one. You would go to the second room. You would remove that student and put the first student in.
Okay,
You're
so.
swapping.
Yeah, basically what you're doing is you're taking student over here.
Done with 1 student before you move into the second, that makes me, because then my.
Correct.
time-
You could have two over and then undone.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
You can't. It would be, but it would be, the current structure, it would be tedious, but that doesn't mean if that is an extremely common occurrence where you're just swapping, that we couldn't make a shortcut. Cause that's the thing that I always look for is if I see somebody that has to, I'm gonna use your example. They have to unschedule this one from room 1, go over to room 2, unschedule this student, bring student 1 into room 2, and then go back to room 1 and drag student 2 into room 1. That isn't a very tedious approach. So if I could give you a click and, oh yeah, by the way, I just want to swap it with this student who's in this time window at this, in this room. I want to swap these two, click a button, hit save, and you're done. And it just, so those are some shortcuts that I absolutely could see being add-ons to it. The trick is I want to make sure we get this, if we're able to get this locked to you, we want it done before you guys start scheduling on the phone. So, yes.
Is this the year that we're going to get breaks and lunches added?
The beauty of this process is, once we lock it, how you drag, how you space events becomes irrelevant to me as the developer. Because I don't have an algorithm that does it. So if you have a time window that has 8 performances in it, and you want to put a lunch break between 4 and 4, then you just move the time windows for those bottom 4 down and you have a gap in there.
But it's not labeled, and then you know what happens?
What's that?
You forget.
Well, there's that.
It's real. Put somebody in there and then go back and, oh, where's my friend?
This is what I do so I don't forget. Have your first thing in at 11:30. And then have your next session start at 12:30. And then you can't put anybody in from 11:30 to
Yeah.
12:30. Then you don't have.
You don't have a time window that includes a
It's
lunchtime.
available. You built it in.
That's how ours.
That's what I have to do it.
You create a time window from 8 to 11, and then you create a second time window on the same day for the same room from 12 to 5. And so that time window doesn't even exist. That lunch period, there's no place for you to put it on the calendar. There's no place for you to put it on the calendar.
In there. So this is my question though. I always thought that when you were running all your reports, you had to click the compile button again to get the changes to show up. So my question is, if you do the swap, how is that going to affect the report?
Okay, remember,
It's not-
the compile button becomes irrelevant at that point.
Oh,
The moment that she did the swap, the schedule changed. So you
So
can
it's
just go
saved?
immediately.
okay,
Yeah, as soon as you unschedule a student, it's saved. As soon as you schedule a student in the new room, it's saved. As soon as you swap students, it's saved. So and once you lock the schedule,
no, it's not safe to use.
not in the new way.
Oh, really? You don't have to click save anymore?
Well, you will still do it on the older stuff, reschedule, that kind of stuff.
Uh-huh.
But the new way I have it, newer technologies, newer methodologies, I'm using them. To where when you, remember what I showed you and you dragged and you dropped?
Yeah.
When you dropped it, what you saw in the upper right corner was a little green checkbox that says this was saved.
Okay,
And if it wasn't saved, it would tell you.
okay,
So I have it to where it saves at the moment that that window was
Okay.
dropped. You don't have to do a thing.
okay.
So. Yes.
On a swap, does it have to be the same duration to
There's some questions about how we would handle the swap. So like, for example, I could ask you a question of what do you want to do with, okay, so let's say you swap a 7 with an 8-minute duration.
Yes.
Let's just say that. All right, so you butted these up against the next performance. So then the next question has to come to be is, what do you want to do? You want to leave the 1-minute gap? Or do you want to move it up? Do you want to move all the performances up that 1 minute?
No,
Or do you want to shift? I mean, obviously, we've got to shift the 1 down in order to make room for the 8-minute. You had it a 7-minute limit. So we will have to.
okay,
I mean, it's either that or I've got to say, I'm sorry, you just can't do that. You're gonna have to manually move them out of the windows, make the room, move them back in the
Okay.
window. So I can do it both ways. It's just a question of what do you want me to be able to do automatically? How simple you want me to do it?
biggest thing is that the times don't keep changing. Because that's what's frustrating everybody. They sent the schedule out.
Right.
And then you do a swap, and then the next time they put the schedule. 15 students have moved by 2 minutes each, and then they start feeling like they're incompetent. And that's the thing that you have to avoid.
Right. Well, in this case, you would be in control of that. Now, that in that scenario, they're going to have to move by at least a minute because you've got a 8-minute duration time window that needs to squeeze into what was a 7-minute window. So in that scenario,
They need to make sure they're causing the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but they're causing the problem for everybody after them.
Yeah,
right.
So it's everybody after them that you're worried about.
And I have encountered several people that they think, well, you know how we used to do it. We allow 8 minutes, but for just this one time, we're gonna call it 7 minutes. And it's like, no, the computer can't do that logic. That has been a problem, and it has thrown a lot of people because they thought for sure they could have variable times, duration times. Just remember that duration times are locked. And that's why I asked the question, is because that would shift things down.
But like I said, yeah, the mechanism by which that happens, whether you're forced to manually do it, or whether I give a checkbox that says, move everything after the
Yeah.
longer window down and move everything after the shorter window up, and give you a checkbox and give you the power to do
the
it.
real answer to that
That would be
is,
good.
you should say that all elementaries are 8 minutes. And then you can swatch all your elementaries and not have that problem.
Yes.
And you say all the primaries are this much time, so you're not gonna do that.
Yes.
We need to write that down, because if you have too many different times
And I've
and you set it up, then you're still gonna have that same problem. But if you standardize it, then you won't, because you'll be able to kind of freely trade among the elementaries or the primary.
And just so you know, this is just kind of the first step. We've got some other ideas on actually moving to, for lack of a better term, a more manual process that's a little more fluid, that would allow you to schedule everything very manually. We don't have a mechanism, but we're hoping to use this as a springboard to that.
So are you saying once we manually put it in, you don't have to push anything else except the type of schedule?
The way it's currently structured, yes. If there is a save button, if for whatever reason I have to put a save button there, you will have to click it, but
Okay.
generally speaking, you will see the save button appear when the save button is needed. But my goal is to not require you to hit the save button incessantly. When you drag and you drop it, it will drag and drop it and save it all in one step.
So we would be able to just go straight away to the report.
Yeah, you can literally drag, drop, see the little green checkbox,
Yeah.
go back to your teacher's list, resend the schedule, and you're good to go.
Big life a lot.
Yeah, it's real time. The compile button, like I said, goes away because it's no longer needed. Once you block in, I don't want you clicking that button and blowing up everything you just did.
But the save changes will still be there for
Pre-schedule
rescheduling
and allocation.
and allocation.
Okay.
We're only talking about after the lock.
Correct.
Big life is a lot.
Yeah, we're just trying to make it a little more fluid. Yes,
Yes, so we do ours by recital format. And I would love for it to go in, level order. So starting with, you know, we have a PP and a P4 and a P1, I want PP to be first and I have to go in and do that manually by adding a time to them. So if they're playing from 9 to 9:30 in the recital format, I want to go first, I have to say 9:01. 9:03 is, you know, like that, is there a way we can make that?
I'm trying to think of, the only thing that it is we sort it. I'm trying to think of what is our secondary sort criteria other than time. We sort it by room, we sort it by time, but then within the recital time, how is it sorted? Is it strictly by time? Do you keep them in order by time as well?
I think it just goes however we put it in.
I'm wondering if it's actually student, registration number.
I think it's in the order of registration.
It's what I've noticed.
That would be the most likely scenario, is that it would go in the order. If there's no secondary search or tertiary search, it will go in the order in which the data was entered. Whatever data you're querying, it will go in that order.
Well, I'm wondering, could you put a check on the thing that you want to do? The sort, you know how you have the sort by group, by that, could you say you want to have it after it's scheduled in the recital format?
Right. And
Could you say you want it to go from by level, easiest to hardest?
I guess the question would be, would that even be necessary? And the reason I'm saying that is right now yours are sorted strictly by time and they're in the order that you want. If we say add a tertiary sort, that would be completely ignored by yours because you timed out everything. So the tertiary sort would be completely ignored.
No, we're talking about when you print the schedule, we're talking about.
I know.
Correct, Tiffany? We're talking about like the recital format when they're called by the monitors, that it's your turn to play. That we want, well, I just tell my admins that my monitors are supposed to go by order.
So wait a minute here.
too bad, except we print all the judging sheets in order, you know, and so we take the time to go and fit them all and under some of the judging. sheets.
Okay.
Yeah.
We do that.
Many do, yeah.
I mean, if that's the case, then I mean, adding the option to sort by levels within recital format, except instead of by time.
No, instead of by. No,
Instead of
within the time,
instead of by registration ID,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
by registration ID.
But it's gonna get really confused because we mix up concertos and duets and everything in the same class.
But you don't have to check that button. We're talking about putting it as an option.
I think it's gonna
I'm not even gonna hit the button, we're the old way. Right?
They don't care about confusing me. So, yes,
Any possibility for us doing recitals, there should be an option to sing like we remember. Because we like to have all our students that perform with music like the duets and all that, they need to go first. And then we do each like event. Is there, would it be possible to, in addition, have like another question, like recital order?
the only thing that we could really do that I can think of off the top of my head would be to basically say, put it in bulletin order. So it would put all of the duets after the solo. So you would be put in bulletin order in the order that it's in the bulletin. And then it would also sort by level at that point too. So does that answer your question?
But I think I think your question and your question are related.
Yes.
But you can see, you want two opposite things.
Yeah. 'cause I-
So therefore, I'm saying. You might just have to do it the way you did it the old way.
We had like a number 1, 2, if I could just remember them.
Oh,
But I tried to do this.
So that's where I'm thinking, get to that next step of the making process, they can just the numbers.
yeah, and then it wouldn't matter, they make up their own.
They make it up, they just.
Come up with an idea. Just put it in.
I'm working on it. I got you, so I wanna make sure I've got these covered here real quick, and then I'll get you, I'll come back to you. Give me a second.
Just, I could just move them, you know, if you could just. take it,
Well-
Slide it, that would help it.
But that's the thing is, if we have that manual process and we can drag and drop them, once the schedule is locked in, the first sort that it uses is time. So if you drag and drop them, it will put them in that order. So if you move them around.
So you
put
could
them-
shuffle them.
Yeah, so with the lock-in, you could just shuffle them around on screen. What's that?
Yeah, so you're saying like if I had a recital for 1:30, I can shove it.
Yes.
Once you log.
That would help, it might be really good help.
Okay. That would achieve that goal. Hang on, I got, Sue's been waiting patiently.
Yeah. Not patient.
Sue's been waiting not so patiently.
Yeah. So my question goes back to the original thing, is being able to download all these into an Excel sheet so we can sort it when we want to. And the other reason is I use that kind of a spreadsheet for check-in, where someone sits at the check-in desk and checks the music picture, the notes are numbered, and make sure it's the right pieces and the right composers, and all those things are correct. The name of the kid is spelled right, all these things, and if we could download it that way, or everything is in separate increments, it's loaded into the computer from the teacher that way. Why can't we get it back that way?
It's a requirement that I was given early on that
Can we-
originally there was, it's something that came down from. It came down, but
Why?
there were many different reasons. I can only give you the technical one. So as little information as is there, as very little information as we keep about students in Vivace, it is a data point. And if you have an export and that export gets downloaded to a computer, emailed, sent about, imported, whatever, and you have it hundreds, thousands of those exports all around. If those email accounts, if those computers become compromised, which they do every single day, my office deals with them every day. Email accounts get compromised, computers get compromised. The malicious players can use a very, very small drop of data to gather information about students, about teachers, and think about anybody who could be a malicious player, a jealous ex-husband, a malicious mother, somebody who wants to, do some harm. But it's just another piece of information that I don't want to be tracked back to our system.
It's the one cell that's got all of the.
I'm fully aware of what you're looking for. I know exactly what you're looking for, but that is, yeah. But I can only speak to a technical reason for it. But it is just one thing, and now they've got AI that if your email becomes compromised, they no longer have somebody manually going through it. They have an AI bot that will go through and pull out. And it only takes 7 data points to have an entire dossier on an individual. So if you look at these data harvesters out there, they can take such little information about somebody and find much.
I
So,
think so, if you'll let him, he's trying to also figure out something that'll work for you. Or he's trying it, and then once, if it works, we trust him, it may take a while. Then all those things that you want to print, they're already in Vivace,
Yeah.
it's just they're not. So we just gotta get it so that the way you manipulate your data is possible in Vivace, and then all the reports are solved.
I'll be very happy.
But that's the reason, and when we first started Vivace, we had so much fight back about. Don't wanna put our data in, and these kids and, the schools have it, and birth dates and everything else, and we've finally gotten past that, but we still have to protect it.
Sure, and I don't care about birthdays, I've already got that stuff.
No, but Vivace needs the birth dates to avoid duplication across the nation.
Download, I don't need that.
No, but it's a matter of that it is stored in the database. So
Yeah.
we need to have that data in there.
So, and he's fiddling with your ideas.
Yeah,
Good.
that's why I wanted to hear how you scheduled and I listened to a couple of other people.
Yeah.
I listened to their process, their actual process of
Because there's
scheduling.
one- Do some very specific ways.
Yeah.
And Vivace will do it if you learn how to do it, sure. And part of the learning curve takes time.
Yeah, we also have to think about how much money we are very limited on spending.
Yeah.
So,
We're pretty-
so should we, is already. Debbie, do you have something?
I just had two little things, and this piggybacks on Sue. It, when we print out schedules, it would be nice if we could say, I want their name, I want their level. If we could click what we wanted in the columns as it prints, to be able to say, I need 2 judges, 3 judges slots, so that it will give you those columns. That'd be cool. And if it's a perfect world, when we move everything up from pre-scheduled to the scheduled column. And so I have my 8 o'clock time, my 8:30 time, and 9 o'clock time. Once I have my 8 o'clock time set, is there a way to have 8 o'clock with a little drop down there? I can click it and it will collapse all those kids so I don't see them for a while. They're all there, they're all in that schedule, but I got it set so that I don't have to scroll every half hour of the whole day. But if I could just collapse that time that I don't need. Do you
So
hear what
you
I mean?
would, so you, when you're, I want to make sure I need to clarify.
Yeah.
When you're doing your pre-schedule, and just to be clear, my terminology is what's on the left side
Yes,
is unscheduled.
right,
When they make it over to the right side, that's your pre-schedule.
Yeah.
Okay.
oh, the right side's pre-scheduled.
Yeah, because
Oh,
when
I
they're over here, they got nothing.
I'm using word wrong.
That's okay. No, I just want to make sure we're on the same
Yes.
page. I want to make sure
Yeah.
we're talking about the same thing. So when it moves over to the right side, and I guess I should be facing this way, so
Yeah.
my right hand, move over to the right side, you put 8 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 8 o'clock, and you want them to disappear.
Well, I have my 8 o'clock time, here comes all the 8 o'clock kids, not 8:30 time, all my 8:30 kids. By the time I get to 5 o'clock.
Just on that right hand side, you're scrolling.
So
right,
if,
right?
once I get my 8 o'clock set, if I could collapse who's in there. It's still, the data's still there, but it just kind of hides it like a drop down or you know what I'm saying?
Like on the right hand side when you're pre-scheduling it, because I have the same problem. I have all these rooms and I have all these violins and I put them all in and then I just scroll past them.
Right. It would be so much easier if I could collapse all the times and now I've only got the 4 and the 4:30 that I'm dealing with.
Show lesson and show block.
Yeah. Yes, thank
Let
you.
me,
Yeah.
let me toy with that idea, because trust me, I know I hate it when I have to spin the wheel like it's the Price is Right wheel to scroll, you know?
It makes me feel like I'm putting in my birth year.
Yes, that's exactly what I feel like. I refer to that as spinning the Price is Right wheel when you're trying to get back your birth year.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. I'm just trying to think of a mechanism to make that happen. So give me a little bit to think
It is a
about.
big, lot of people complain about that.
So
That would be a.
That would be a big.
the trick would be the trick wouldn't be hiding. The trick would be identifying what you want to see. That's the tricky
Oh,
part.
okay, okay.
That's the tricky part. So, and especially when you get ones that have a lot of rooms, those are going to be more difficult because that checkbox of which rooms you want to hide. But now that I actually just said that out loud, I have a couple of
Oh, you got
ideas.
some ideas.
I have a couple of ideas. I have a couple of, I don't know if they're gonna work or not, so don't share yet, all right? So,
Listening, cover your listening, that's what's important.
And that's the biggest yay.
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
I
Well,
appreciate it.
so let me think about that one there, because I think that's a possibility if we could have it to where initially you've seen everything and then you can identify
And then you can.
which ones you don't want to see.
Yeah, Sandra, if I could say something just a second.
Yes, for my room ID, I usually put in brass or string or the teacher or the judge that's gonna be in there. So up in the search, I just type in that and boom, I instantly.
Right. And it works and it helps, but I still,
No, I see what you're getting at, and I think there's a better mechanism to make that happen.
you're right, because I do that, Janice, and it is
Oh.
very helpful. It's very helpful
Yeah.
and it gets me there quicker, but there are still moments when I need to scroll.
The tricky
In
part,
between.
yeah, the
Yeah.
other tricky part is if you leave that screen and come back, what do you want to see? You wanna see
Yeah, I
everything
don't wanna
again?
have to click, yeah, because you.
And then have to hide everything again? That's that comes to be the tricky part, because then what you run into is, let's just say hypothetically, we go into that scenario where you only show 3 rooms, your last 3 rooms. And so you don't have to scroll all that much, but when you go back, when you leave and come back, and I'm not necessarily thinking about you, I'm thinking about somebody else who's
Sure.
used it, and they come back and they go, my rooms, they're not here anymore, because we've remembered that you only want to see these 3 rooms. But if we show all the rooms initially, then you have to go through and I've got
And
it.
then, yeah. click them all.
Maybe not. Maybe you say, I don't want to see this day, I don't want to see this day, I don't want to see this day, but I want to see these 3 rooms on this day.
I would
So
love to just.
whole
have it
whole days
be
instead
the
of
same as
individual
when I
days.
left. Because you're working probably around the same time. So,
So the other thing that's kind of frustrating is when I do a search like that, and I'll put in like, I wanna see 282 on
Mhm.
this day. But then I do something and then I save it, and then I have to go back and do it again. If you could stay on that search
stay where you
profile,
were, yeah.
that would also help.
But I'm only talking
But
about if
remember,
you leave
Marianne.
the screen. I'm not talking about if you redraw the window. I'm talking about if you leave the screen, but the
But
other
sometimes
possibility
I do
is,
have to go to the teacher and look in, you know, in their chart for a minute, and then I come back.
but in that scenario, you could open a separate tab for that.
That's true.
Yeah, you could
That's
open a
true, and
separate
I do.
tab, but another simple solution would be to simply have a check all and uncheck all, and then you can uncheck all and check the 3 rooms you want to see. I mean, there's all kinds of ways around it. My biggest fear is the person that's not as technically savvy coming back and not being able to find the rooms, and they did this, 3 days ago, and they completely forgot that they used that filter to show only those, and they're in complete panic trying to do their schedule because they can't see the rooms. So that would be my biggest fear, is we would throw somebody off right in the middle of schedule. So. What else do we have? I think Janice had something she wanted to say.
So I was talking about the search, student search.
Oh, okay, that's, okay. Any other questions?
Did your person ever have a question? She's on.
I have one unrelated question to scheduling.
Okay, go ahead.
The whole Lynn Freeman Olson. Where it does check the correlations, and if you start with Lynn Freeman Olson, is there like a time? That'll be. Done,
Oh, you talking about that error message? On there?
the error message, and then if you start.
Yeah, and
with
the
Lynn
approval
Freeman
process.
Olson,
The morning,
There's
the
two different-
morning,
the
we're
morning-
going to
Yeah.
approve that Lynn Freeman Olson, that Vivace doesn't check correlations between them.
Is Vivace ever gonna check correlations with Lynn Freeman Olson?
Pardon?
Is it ever gonna check?
You know
Correlations
what?
with Lynn Freeman Olson?
It's probably still on the list, but to me, the scheduling is more important, and we only get him so many hours a month, so.
And then there's another one with Lynn Freeman Olson, I think if you start with it. And you alternate later, isn't there a issue with that?
Yeah. That they probably should be trained to click Lynn Freeman Olson at the beginning in case they ever want to alternate with them, so they start with Lynn Freeman Olson. That's what we're talking about. That's all.
My friend wants to know if you're gonna release a summary of all the updates somewhere.
Yeah, it's a good question, Mom.
Of the updates to Vivace,
A summary of all your updates that you've been released.
Oh, that's.
well, I usually put it in the junior keynotes, I do a summary in junior keynotes all the time.
And we're gonna work on the guides this summer, and so we'll put in where there are new features.
Yeah,
Maybe
I just read that, but I try to say a summary every time in junior keynotes.
Okay, so tell her to look good.
That's in the fall issue. What? That's in the fall issue, yeah, but that is a kind of silly. Yeah, so. If you have an idea, you have to share it before we can talk, before it can be.
Oh, right there.
solved. So, but I think you see, we're very open there.